All right, so hey guys, man, so guys, we're doing a match review for Ferencvaros 0, Barcelona 3. Per usual, we'll be discussing about the lineup real quick, what Ronald Koeman selected. We'll do the player ratings, give an overall game summary, and then, of course, you guys know the drill. My takeaways from the game, what we have learned from this game. So, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I think Koeman selected a very interesting lineup. I think this was a very good lineup. I think the only players I did not expect to start were... I expected De Jong to start, maybe. I didn't expect both Busquets and Pjanic to start. Everyone else, I think I did predict them to start. So, like I said before, guys, a very good lineup indeed by Ronald Koeman. So, I'm going to give Ronald Koeman and his I'm going to give Ronald Koeman a solid 8 out of 10. I think he did very well with his lineup. I think his substitutions were pretty on point. The one thing I would maybe say is that maybe he could have started the more youth. He could have maybe given the chance to the youth right up from the start in the midfield instead of playing both Busquets and Pjanic. However, I mean, I'll be honest, I think he did okay. Maybe I'm being a little too harsh there. Anyhow, I think he did very good with his lineup today. So let's go ahead and get on to the players. Let's start with Neto. Neto didn't really have to do so much. He did make some couple of saves, as you would expect. And overall, I think Neto, it's been a while since we've seen Neto. And this has been the first time we've seen Neto since, I believe it was the Alves game. I remember that game. He had a horror show in that game, obviously. Well, he had a terrible mistake, let's just say that. And overall, I think Neto was pretty solid today. I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. I think Neto did pretty decent today. Okay. Moving on. We have Jordi Elba. I think Jordi Elba, in my opinion, in the first half especially, he was very good bombing towards that left flank. He was so incredible for us in that first couple of minutes opening play. He was making those runs, making those crosses into the box. He was responsible for the first goal that we scored, which was he provided the assist to Antoine Griezmann. And so I think he had a very good game. I'm going to give him a 7.5. I think he was pretty solid on the day. He was being constant on the left flank the first half, especially at the attack. And then I'm going to say for the next up we have is Clement Longley, who in my opinion had a pretty decent game. He came off halftime. I think he did pretty decent for the most part. Longley, 7 out of 10. He wasn't expected. I didn't expect him to play in this game, and surprisingly, he did. And so I think it was good that Longley didn't play the full 90 because we don't want to risk another injury. We needed to have him fit for that Cadiz game this weekend, and hopefully Arujo will be fit for that game. Okay. So Longley, pretty good, 7 out of 10. Moving on to Oscar Mingueza. Before we move on to Oscar Mingueza, one of the things I really think about Longley that not a lot of people talk about is long balls. He made 4 long balls today, guys, and I think that's very good for a center back. He's making those runs, making those forward-minded passes, and that's what we like from a defender like that, when they're not expected to make those kind of passes. Okay. Moving to Oscar Mingueza, I thought he was very good today, making those tackles. That's what you want from a center back, and I think he is looking very, very good. And honestly, this guy looks like a main starter. I mean, like if it's between him and PK, I would rather start him for sure. No disrespect to PK. It's just that PK for me has just been sometimes been alive, sometimes has been kind of shaky. Sometimes he puts in good performances. PK for me is a player that's very inconsistent. Sometimes he's good, sometimes he's bad. And I feel like Oscar Mingueza, from what we have seen so far, especially after the Dynamo Kyiv game, he's looked very good indeed. 3 clean sheets consecutively. Now, I understand the opponent hasn't been that difficult in theory. Still, it is very good, and it is great to know. So I think Oscar Mingueza has almost established himself as a main starter for now. I'm really glad for him. Moving on to Oscar Mingueza, I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. Moving on to Serginho Dest. I think Serginho Dest, in my opinion, was very good today. I was really impressed what he was doing in the second half, especially making those attacks, making something happen from the right flank. Because I feel like in the first half, he wasn't really too involved, particularly too much. But in the second half, man, he was involved a lot. We were playing more on the right flank, more so than the left flank. Because I feel like the left flank for us was a huge part of the first half. Second half was more so the right flank. And he was making things happen. And overall, I think Serginho Dest has been looking very, very good indeed. And I just got the news today that Sergio Roberto did test positive for COVID-19. So I do wish him a speedy. I hope he recovers quickly. Okay. So yeah, Serginho Dest, very good player indeed. 7 out of 10 for sure. Moving on to Pjanic. I think Pjanic didn't really have a great game. And I think Pjanic and Busquets, our midfield was kind of kind of lacking in honesty. I feel like our midfield was probably one of the worst parts on the day. Like our midfield was getting easy bypassed at times. Ferencvaros, they did get to our back line more often than not, and thankfully we had some good defenders in the day, so we were able to keep a clean sheet. That midfield, though, was getting a little bit bypassed more often than not. So I think Pjanic and Busquets, they're both pretty average, in my opinion. Didn't really do too much great stuff, in all honesty, and so I'm going to give them both a 6 out of 10. Moving on to Ousmane Dembele, who in my opinion is the man of the match. He was excellent on the first half, especially. He was so lively in the left wing. And that's what I love about Ousmane Dembele, because I know a lot of people say that Ousmane Dembele is not great on the left wing, guys. He can only play in the right wing, man. No. It is absolutely not true. It doesn't matter where you put Dembele, left or right. He is very good. Now, I think we can all agree that probably Dembele is probably better playing on the right side. I think that's probably true. However, he can still be as, if not even better, left wing at some games, and I thought he was excellent today. He was captain for the second half, which was something I did not expect, and Dembele overall just looked very solid indeed, and I was really impressed what he was doing. He got the penalty, he scored the penalty that Braithwaite won, and he was looking very good indeed. I'm going to give Dembele a solid 9 out of 10. He was really good, guys. I was really impressed with Dembele. Moving on to Antoine Griezmann. Antoine Griezmann, in my opinion, just had a really good game. He didn't miss any big opportunities today. And the one opportunity he got, one chance he got, he put in the back of the net. And that's what you like to see from your Cam specifically. I know he didn't really play as a striker per se. However, I do believe when Griezmann is playing in behind an actual real striker, a striker that can actually score goals, then he is very effective. And that's what I like about Griezmann, is that Griezmann is so good. And that's what we haven't had in Barcelona, because Suarez, we know, can be a little missy. We know Suarez isn't exactly that clinical. However, he does score a fair amount of goals, I will admit. And we know Messi isn't really the best at the striker position. I don't think Messi is really the best at the striker position. Griezmann has played very well indeed. And I think he did a pretty good job. He came off at, I believe, around halftime-ish. So, 64th minute he came off for. So I think he had a pretty decent game. Overall, for the most part, I was very happy for him. Griezmann, a 7 out of 10. We went to Francisco Trincao, and sadly, I have to give Francisco Trincao one of the worst ratings today. I was so disappointed to say this, because I really wanted Trincao to step up, man, look so good, and sadly, he didn't deliver yet. Now, let's not be too harsh here. Trincao is still young. He still has a lot of years ahead of him. He's, I believe, 20 years old, so we shouldn't be too harsh on Trincao, guys. We shouldn't lambast him. We shouldn't criticize him. We shouldn't criticize. Okay, we shouldn't roast him. We shouldn't destroy. We shouldn't make him feel entirely bad. Okay, because he is young. After all, he is going to probably stay here for a very long time, and I believe it's not best that we roast Trincao for this. So overall, though, I think Trincao just had a disappointing game. Overall, I expected a little bit more from him. His goal game. There was one chance he had right at I believe, the second half. He could have easily have made it 4-0 and decided just to. And he missed it. Trincao, man, he just didn't really look that great. He didn't look that confident, in all honesty. And I don't know, man. I think we're going to need Trincao. We're going to need to give him some time. I don't think we can really expect Trincao to be this amazing, especially as he was at Braga. However, I do expect Trincao will eventually redeem himself, and I think eventually he'll become very good for us. So let's not be too harsh on Trincao, guys. So Trincao, I sadly have to give him a 5. And 5 is still decent. 5 is still a decent rating, I would say. Moving on to Martin Braithwaite, who in my opinion was pretty good on the day. He was amazing. He won that penalty. Although he didn't take it himself, he still won the penalty. And he also did score a nicely goal from a beautiful cross from Ousmane Dembele, of course. And I think Braithwaite on the day was very solid today as a striker, and that's what I love to see. He has been very clinical for us. And it's crazy to believe that Braithwaite scored 4 goals in his last 3 games. It's just unbelievable, because this guy was not even supposed to be here. I think many of us fans didn't really have high expectations for him, and all of a sudden he almost established himself as a main starter. So Braithwaite, in my opinion, was very good today. 7 out of 10 for sure. Moving on to some of the subs, we're going to talk about some of the subs. I'm only talking about 4 subs on the day. We're not going to be talking about Conrad de la Fuente, simply because he came on at 80th minute, and by that point the game was pretty much wrapped up, so I'm not going to really discuss about Conrad de la Fuente, although I will say Conrad de la Fuente looked pretty good on the day, and we definitely do need to see more of Conrad in the future for sure. And Dembele did also try to chip the keeper. By the way, I forgot to talk about that. Moving on, our subs. We got Riqui Pooge. Riqui Pooge, in my opinion, had a pretty decent game. He was amazing. He had a great chance to score, and it was just scuffed. and Dembele tried to be unselfish and tried to give it to him, and sadly, Pooge couldn't convert. Overall, though, I think Pooge was pretty solid, 7 out of 10, and I definitely do think he can almost. I think this is a player we definitely need to watch, keep an eye on for the future. Moving on to the next player we have, it is De Jong, who, in my opinion, was pretty decent as a center back. He filled in nicely for Longley, who, in my opinion, just had a very decent game. De Jong looked very good. He didn't look out of position whatsoever, and he looked very comfortable on the day. I think De Jong was pretty good, so I'm going to give him 7 out of 10. Move on to Firpo. Now, I know many of us don't really like Firpo that much. I know many of us kind of hate Firpo for what he's been doing. Although I think today Firpo wasn't bad defensively. I think defensively he was pretty solid on the day. And that's what you like to see from a fullback. It's not just about attacking-wise. It's also about defensively. That's something we need to understand as well. I think Firpo did his job just about. And I think despite the fact that Koeman doesn't have faith in him, that's what I've heard recently, he looks pretty okay. So I think Firpo, for me, gets a 7. And moving on to Lenya, who in my opinion was pretty decent on the day. I think we're starting to get to see more Lenya. And I think it's good to know that Lenya has been given a lot of minutes, because especially I feel like Lenya was someone that deserved minutes, and Lenya looked really solid today. I'm going to give him 7 out of 10. So that's pretty much it for the players. Now we're going to move on and talk about the overall game. So basically, it basically started with Barcelona bombing down the left flank, and with Jordi Elba providing the cross for Antoine Griezmann to head it in the 14th to put it in the 14th minute. Griezmann scores 14th minute to make it 1-0 to Barcelona. It was kind of a nice kind of back heel goal. No, it wasn't really like a back heel. It was kind of a nice. I don't really know how to describe it. It's kind of like a nice turn, I guess. It's kind of hard to describe it. Basically, he scored it. It was a nice goal. It was a nice way he celebrated as well. Moving on to Braithwaite. Braithwaite also scored his goal very nicely, falling from a left cross from the left wing from Dembele. And then a penalty was won by Braithwaite when he was taking down the box. Dembele steps up and takes it, and Dembele makes it 3-0. So that's pretty much how the goals came about. There were some big chances for the Barcelona in the second half. Obviously, we talked about the Dembele passing Ricky Pooge. That was a big chance, and Dembele missing a sitter. Trincao missing that sitter, and then Dembele also had a great chance to make it 4-0 when the keeper just went out, and it just went wide. And I believe Pjanic had a big chance later on in the second half, and it was just wide. There were several big chances like that. And overall, it was a very routine win for Barcelona. Although, to be fair, Ferencvaros did cause us some problems. And interestingly enough, what I learned from this game was that this was almost like an exact carbon opposite of what happened last week. Because remember, guys, Barcelona had a very slow first half. They did not look great whatsoever. Kyiv were getting on us. And then all of a sudden, in the second half, Barcelona started to get turn up the gear, and Barcelona won 4-0, and never looked back. This game, it almost felt like an exact opposite of this. It felt like the first half, Barcelona were really good, and then the second half, they were kind of like messing around. They were kind of loose. And you see right now the stats. 19 shots, 5 on target. You see how poor that is? Yes, it is a routine win. We were thankfully clinical on the day. But as I said before, guys, we're going to need to work on that shots on target, because that is something we especially need to do if we're going to go ahead and make far in this Champions League, because we know that there's one team in particular that they're going to, one team in particular that's so clinical, and that is Bayern Munich. So we definitely need to be more clinical in front of goal. That is something I've noticed today. Second of all, I've also noticed is that Dembele looks like the real future. I think Dembele has almost announced himself as a starter, and I think Dembele should be given more and more opportunities. And third of all, I think Griezmann's been great. I think Griezmann's just been great. I think Griezmann's been on great form. So, like I said, guys, this was a very good performance overall speaking. However, I do want to see us to put a complete performance for the full 90 minutes. That is something we haven't seen yet this season, and that I guess the Osasuna game was close to about as good as that in some ways. So we'll see, man. We'll see how we do against Juventus, because Juventus, they won 3-0, I believe, against Dynamo Kyiv. So basically, that last game is all to play for. Obviously, Barcelona do have the advantage. If Juventus do win, then it'll come down to head-to-head goal difference to determine which team tops the group. Hopefully, we can get the dub or at least a draw to secure our top spot in the group to go to the knockout stage. So I'll see you guys later. Hope you guys enjoy this video, guys. Remember, comment, like, and subscribe. Comment, like, and subscribe. Check out my description below for my Twitter, my Discord, and my email. And I'll see you guys later. Peace out.